"Cross the line," Kalen roared. His forearms flexed, pulling his titanium armor tight against his massive chest. 12 Armada fleets do not bow to an old ghost story. The flagship Ironfang surged forward. Behind it, 500 Valgast dreadnoughts crossed the outer border of the Sol system. For 3,000 cycles, galactic maps marked this dead grid with a single red rune. The old records called it a grave. Kalen called it his next conquest. He held a stolen obsidian plaque in his top left hand. Gold markings covered the black stone, cold against his skin. The translation read clearly enough: "Do not breach the boundary." The cage was built for them, not you. Kalen laughed, a harsh sound that made his bridge crew flinch. He sharpened his heavy claws against his breastplate, spraying tiny sparks onto the floor. "If you stand at the threshold of forbidden space, listen closely before you turn the handle." 3 light minutes past Neptune, the stars seemed to die. The normal hum of subspace chatter vanished into total silence. "Sensors active, High Chief," Sub-Warlord Zark said, his tail twitching against his chair. "No radio signals, no trade ships, no planetary defense shields." "The humans died out millennia ago," Kalen said, stepping toward the main view screen. "They hid in the dark until their fires went cold." "Sir," Tech Vrin called out from the lower pit. His voice trembled. "I am running scans on the inner worlds. Mars has no atmosphere. Earth shows no lights on its surface. But the mass readings are wrong." Kalen leaned over the console. "Speak plainly, Vren." "The planets are hollow," Vren whispered, staring at his screen. "The rock is just a roof. Millions of structural pillars run straight down into the core. Whatever lives there is sitting deep inside the mantle." Before Kalen could answer, the ship's lights died. Emergency power kicked on, casting a dim green glow over the panicked bridge crew. Outside the view screen, the dwarf planet Pluto began to split apart. It was not exploding. Massive mechanical segments, each 40 miles wide, slid back like the iris of a giant eye. A ring of silver metal rose from the icy rock. It turned slowly, locking gear teeth into space itself. "Pull us back," Zark yelled, gripping his console. "The spatial grid is locking up." 3 rear dreadnoughts tried to turn. They did not explode. They did not break. Space simply folded over them like a closing book, and the ships vanished from the sensor screens. No debris remained. No energy signatures lingered in the vacuum. A high audio tone cut through the Ironfang speakers. The sound smelled of burnt copper and ozone, forcing several bridge officers to cover their ears. Every screen on the flagship flickered and reset to a single live feed. A human woman stood in the center of a bare metal room. Her hair was silver, pulled tight against her head. She wore a dark gray tunic with no marks of rank. In her right hand, she held an ancient brass activation key. Her left arm bore a long, jagged scar that ran beneath her sleeve. "I am Warden Director Sarah Vance," she said. Her voice was flat, carrying no anger and no fear. "You have breached a Class 0 containment zone. Turn your fleet around immediately." Kalen stepped up to the transmission screen. He bared his sharp teeth, leaning his huge frame toward her image. "You speak from a dead ditch, human. My armada holds 500 ships. We take what we wish." Sarah Vance did not look at his teeth. She looked down at a small monitor near her hand. "Your fleet is 500 targets sitting inside a killing box. We did not build this ring to keep you out, Valgast. We built it to keep something else in." A deep shudder ran through the Ironfang. It was not a physical impact. It was a gravitational wave that made the deck plates bend like rubber. Behind Pluto's spinning ring, space tore open. The rift did not look like subspace. It looked like a jagged black tear in a sheet of dark paper. A massive form pushed its way through the gap. It had no fixed shape. It was a shifting mass of dark geometry, miles wide, covered in null light that swallowed the surrounding stars. A soundless pressure slammed into the bridge, making Kalen's lower eyes bleed. Sub-Warlord Zark fell to his knees, clawing at his throat as his breath came in short gasps. Half the bridge crew collapsed where they stood. "That is Zul-Tarith," Vance said over the static. Her fingers rested on the physical brass key. "The first devourer. It ate 3 star systems before our ancestors dragged it here 10,000 years ago. We could not kill it. We could only build a lock big enough to hold it." The void entity threw out dark tendrils that wrapped around a Valgest heavy cruiser. The warship's shields dissolved in seconds. The hull crumpled inward like a crushed metal cup, spitting sparks and frozen air into the void. Kalen gripped the edge of his console with all 4 hands. His pulse hammered in his ears. "Fire all weapons," he commanded. "Break that thing." 100 dreadnoughts fired their main plasma beams at once. Red light burned across the dark. The beams hit the void entity and simply stopped. The black mass drank the energy, growing larger with every hit. A new tier opened in the rift, wider than the first. "Your weapons feed it," Vance said calmly. She lifted the heavy brass key and pushed it into a slot on her steel desk. "Earth was never a home world, High Chief. It is an engine." She turned the key with a heavy mechanical click that echoed through the transmission. 4 billion kilometers away, Earth shifted. Across the Atlantic Ocean, the crust of the planet split open along a 2,000-mile line. Massive hydraulic locks released with the sound of grinding mountains. Millions of tons of ocean water drained down into deep underground holding tanks. The outer mantle of the planet swung outward on tectonic hinges. Deep beneath the dirt and rock, a brilliant blue light flared to life. A sphere of polished iron and superdense alloy, the size of Earth's moon, pushed out from the open core. It rose into space, trailing clouds of shattered atmosphere and glowing magma. Blue energy rings, each thousands of miles wide, deployed from the sphere's equator. They aligned themselves with the Plutonian ring across the solar system, forming a straight line of blue light that cut through the dark. Kalen stared at the viewscreen. The sheer scale of the engineering froze the breath in his chest. His claws stopped their sharpening. "The Warden engine is active," Vance's voice rang out, no longer coming from the screen, but directly through the Iron Fang's subspace receiver. The moon-sized machine fired. No beam of light flashed across the void. Instead, a wave of pure gravitational force hit the rift. Space itself flattened. The void entity screamed, a mental sound that rattled the metal plates inside Kalen's skull. The blue wave hit Zul-Tarith's shifting body. The null light fractured. The geometry collapsed in on itself as the spatial lock crushed the entity down to a single point. With a final, silent flash, the black tier snapped shut. Space closed up smooth and clear, leaving only floating dust where the Star Eater had been. The blue rings around the Warden engine slowly retracted. The planetary shell closed back over Earth's core, locking together with a quiet, distant thud that registered on every sensor across the system. The Iron Fang sat dead in space. Its weapons systems were offline. Its engines were locked out by human security codes that had flooded their network during the firing sequence. Kalen stood on his silent bridge. The officers who could still stand looked at him, waiting for an order he did not have. He looked down at the obsidian plaque in his lower hand. The gold markings had changed under the heat of the energy pulse. The old words were gone. New human script burned bright against the black stone. The cage was never meant to hide us. It was meant to hold them until the Warden woke. A small human shuttle pulled up alongside the massive Iron Fang. It did not charge weapons. It did not demand surrender. It simply attached itself to the main docking bay. Sarah Vance stepped through the airlock 5 minutes later. She walked onto the Valgest bridge alone, wearing the same gray tunic. Her boots clicked rhythmically against the deck plates. Kalen looked down at her. He did not raise his claws. He did not reach for his sidearm. "Your fleet is disabled," Vance said, stopping 10 paces from his chair. "Your weapons are cold. You have two choices, High Chief. Kalen cleared his dry throat. What choices? You can leave your ships here, take your shuttle pods, and go back to your empire to tell them what lives in this sector, she said, her gray eyes locking onto his. Or you can keep your ships, take the oath, and help us hold the line. The seals are old. More of them are breaking every cycle. Kalen looked out the view screen toward the outer ring. A small human patrol vessel was already taking its station near the edge of Pluto, its searchlights cutting through the dark. He looked back at his four-armed hands, then down at the steady human standing before him. He unclasped his heavy breastplate and let it fall to the steel deck with a loud clang. He stepped toward her, his claws relaxed at his sides. 6 months later, the outer edge of the Sol system remained quiet. 2 Valgas dreadnoughts flew in tight formation with 3 human sentinel ships along the Plutonian boundary. Their sensors swept the dark together, watching for the slightest flicker in the spatial grid. Inside the Iron Fang's command center, Kalen Vorn stood by the main window. He no longer sharpened his claws against his armor. His lower left hand rested lightly on the old obsidian plaque, now mounted permanently into the ship's main bulkhead. Beyond the glass, the great silver ring turned in the silent vacuum, its gears locked, waiting for the dark to move again.